The monitors screamed. Grace Miller's hands trembled as she pressed the damp cloth against the little boy's burning forehead. His skin was paper-thin, blue veins tracing maps of suffering beneath translucent flesh. Noah Cole, 6 years old, heir to a billion-dollar empire, and dying in a bedroom larger than most people's apartments. "Please," she whispered, though she didn't know who she was talking to. "God? The universe? Anyone listening?" The fever had spiked an hour ago. 104.7 degrees. The night nurse had rushed downstairs to call Dr. Reeves again, leaving Grace alone with the child whose shallow breaths sounded like autumn leaves scraping across pavement. "Hello, beautiful souls. I'm so glad you're here with me today." Grace had always believed in miracles. The kind her grandmother used to talk about over sweet tea on summer porches. The kind that didn't make sense but happened anyway. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments. I love knowing we're all connected across the miles. She needed that connection now, that reminder she wasn't alone in this vast, cold mansion where hope seemed to leak through the marble floors. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. These stories, they're about finding light in the darkest places. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what happens next. Noah's eyelids fluttered. Beneath them, his eyes moved frantically, trapped in some fevered dream Grace couldn't reach. She'd only been working here for 3 weeks, but she'd already learned the geography of his suffering. The way his small hands clutched the sheets when the pain hit, the soft whimper that meant another headache was coming, the terrible stillness that followed his worst episodes. "I'm here," she murmured, smoothing back his sweat-dampened hair. It was the color of wheat fields, just like his father's. "You're not alone, sweetheart." She'd said those words every day since she started. Maybe she said them for herself too. The mansion settled around them with the weight of money that couldn't buy what mattered most. Downstairs, she could hear the night nurse's urgent voice on the phone. 3rd floor, in the master suite, Ethan Cole was probably still at his desk, drowning in contracts and conference calls because working was easier than watching his only child slip away. Grace knew about running from pain. She'd been doing it for 2 years. Her fingers found the silver cross at her throat, the only thing of value she owned. Her grandmother had pressed it into her palm the night before she died. When you can't see the path, baby girl, sometimes you just gotta walk on faith. Faith had led Grace here, to this job she'd found through a church bulletin board. Housekeeping position, they'd said. Live in. Good pay. They hadn't mentioned the dying child. They hadn't mentioned the father who looked at his son with such devastating love and helplessness that it physically hurt to witness. Noah's breathing changed. Grace's head snapped up. The rhythm was wrong. Too fast, too shallow, like a bird's wings beating against glass. Noah. She leaned closer. His lips were turning blue. The medical equipment surrounded his bed like a metal forest. 4 stands, oxygen tanks, monitors that tracked every failing function of his small body. But none of it was helping. None of it had helped for 8 months. 8 months since the symptoms started. 8 months since the best doctors in the country began their parade through this room. Each one more baffled than the last. They had names for what they'd ruled out, but no name for what was killing him. Unexplained degenerative condition, they called it. Unprecedented cellular decay. Translation, we don't know. We can't help. Watch him die. Grace pressed her palm against Noah's chest. His heartbeat felt like moth wings. There, then not there, then barely there. No, she breathed. No, no, no. She'd lost too much already. Her parents in a car accident when she was 19. Her grandmother 2 years later. Her apartment, her savings, her entire life. All of it gone in a series of disasters that felt almost biblical in their completeness. But she hadn't lost her faith. Bruised, maybe. Questioned, definitely. But not lost. Don't you dare, she told Noah, and her voice cracked. Don't you dare give up. The door burst open. The night nurse rushed in, Dr. Reeves on her heels, but Grace barely registered them. She was staring at Noah's face, watching the color drain from his cheeks like water from a bathtub. His eyes opened. For one crystalline moment, he looked directly at her. Really looked, with a clarity that hadn't been there in days. His lips moved, forming words without sound. Help me. Then his eyes rolled back. His body went rigid. The monitors erupted in a chaos of alarms that would haunt Grace's dreams for years to come. Seizure. Dr. Reeves barked, pushing past her. Get Mr. Cole. Now. The nurse sprinted from the room. Grace stumbled backward, her hip hitting the nightstand. watching as the doctor worked over Noah's convulsing body with the mechanical precision of someone who'd given up on miracles long ago. This wasn't supposed to happen. Not tonight. Not like this. Grace's grandmother had told her once that God puts people exactly where they need to be. You might not understand it at the time, baby. Might not make a lick of sense. But there's a reason. Always a reason. What was the reason for this? What was the reason for a child who'd never hurt anyone, who'd never even lived enough to know real joy, to suffer like this? The door slammed open again. Ethan Cole filled the doorway, and for a moment, just a moment, Grace saw past the billionaire CEO to the terrified father underneath. Noah. His voice broke on his son's name. The seizure was ending. Noah's small body went limp, and the silence that followed was somehow worse than the alarms. Dr. Reeves checked his pupils, checked his pulse, and when he looked up at Ethan, Grace saw the truth in his expression before he spoke it. Mr. Cole, the doctor said quietly, I think we need to discuss making him comfortable. Making him comfortable. The universal code for, it's time to let go. No. Ethan crossed the room in 3 strides. He grabbed his son's hand, and Grace saw his knuckles go white. There has to be something. Some treatment we haven't tried. Some specialist. We've consulted with everyone. Dr. Reeves' tone was gentle but firm. His system is shutting down. I'm sorry. Grace pressed her fist against her mouth to keep from crying out. This couldn't be the ending. Not for this child. Not for this father who'd sacrificed everything to find a cure that didn't exist. Not when she'd finally found somewhere she belonged. Even if that belonging was just reading stories to a dying boy and pretending they both believed in happy endings. Ethan Cole stood frozen, still gripping his son's hand, and Grace realized she was witnessing something sacred and terrible. A moment when faith collides with reality and shatters into 1,000 pieces. But somewhere in the broken glass, she thought she saw light. Grace had learned to read people in the 2 years since her world fell apart. When you're sleeping in your car, showering at truck stops, and stretching a single can of soup across 2 days, you develop a radar for human nature. You learn which restaurant managers will let you sit for hours nursing a coffee, which church ladies offer help without judgment, which men's kindness comes with strings attached. Ethan Cole was different. She'd first seen him 3 weeks ago during her interview with Mrs. Chun, the head housekeeper. He'd walked past the kitchen where they sat, phone pressed to his ear, designer suit perfectly tailored, moving like a man who'd forgotten how to stop. He hadn't noticed Grace at all, but she'd noticed him. Noticed the shadows under his eyes that expensive skincare couldn't hide. Noticed how his free hand unconsciously formed a fist, like he was fighting an invisible enemy. Noticed that when Mrs. Chin mentioned his son's name, he'd paused mid-stride before forcing himself forward. A man running from grief. Grace knew that race intimately. He's a good man, Mrs. Chen had told her, voice dropping to a whisper. But the boy, it's breaking him. We've had 6 housekeepers in 4 months. They can't handle it. The sadness in this house. Grace had needed the job too desperately to care about sadness. She'd packed her life into 2 garbage bags and moved into the small staff bedroom that same afternoon. Now, standing in Noah's room at 2 in the morning, watching father and son in the lamplight, she understood what Mrs. Chin meant. The sadness wasn't just in the house. It was the house. It saturated the walls, pressed down from the vaulted ceilings, echoed in the emptiness of 30 unused rooms. This mansion was a mausoleum for hopes that died slowly, one medical bill at a time. Leave us. Ethan's voice was barely audible. Dr. Reeves nodded, gathering his equipment. The night nurse slipped out behind him. Grace turned to follow, but Ethan's next words stopped her. Not you. She froze. In 3 weeks, he'd spoken maybe 20 words to her total. She was part of the invisible army of staff that kept his life running. Present but not real, useful but not human. Sir. Stay. He didn't look at her. His eyes remained fixed on Noah's face, pale and still against the pillow. The seizure had ended, but something had shifted. The boy's breathing was so shallow it barely moved his chest. Grace's hands twisted in her apron. Before you leave a comment about what you think happens next, let me tell you why I need to tell this story. Her grandmother used to say that some moments changed everything. That life had these hinge points where one choice led to heaven and another to hell. This felt like standing on a hinge. How long have you been with him tonight? Ethan asked. Since 6. The night nurse needed to make calls, so You've been here 8 hours. Not a question. A statement loaded with something Grace couldn't identify. You do this often? She hesitated. The truth was she spent most nights in Noah's room. Not because anyone asked, but because her own bedroom felt too quiet, too much like the car she'd lived in before this job. And because Noah seemed to rest easier when someone was near. He doesn't like being alone, she said simply. Ethan's jaw tightened. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, no one does. The vulnerability in those 3 words hit Grace like a physical blow. This man, this billionaire who commanded boardrooms and built empires, sounded lost. Sounded like every person Grace had met in the darkest valleys of her life, the ones who'd forgotten how to hope. She'd been one of them, maybe still was. Tell me about him, Ethan said suddenly. What's he like? When I'm not here? Grace blinked. You want to know? I'm in this house 16 hours a day, and I don't know my own son. His voice cracked. Every meeting, every call, it's all to find someone who can save him. But while I'm saving him, He stopped, swallowed hard. What's he like? The question broke Grace's heart cleanly in half. She moved closer, keeping her voice soft. He loves stories. Adventure ones, especially. Yesterday I read him Peter Pan and he laughed. Actually laughed. When Captain Hook fell in the water. First time I've heard him laugh. Ethan's eyes closed. He asks about you, Grace continued. Every day. When's Dad coming? He doesn't say it like he's upset. He says it like he understands. Like he knows you're fighting for him. I'm losing. Ethan's hand tightened on Noah's. 8 months. 37 specialists. For experimental treatments. And I'm losing. Maybe fighting isn't about winning, Grace heard herself say. Maybe it's about showing up. The words hung in the air between them. She'd said too much. Overstepped the invisible line between staff and employer. But Ethan didn't dismiss her. Instead, he looked at her properly for the first time. Who are you? Not hostile. Genuinely curious. Like he was seeing her for the first time and finding something unexpected. Grace Miller. Former college student. Orphan. Homeless for 6 months before Mrs. Chen's phone call saved her. Owner of 2 outfits, 1 cross necklace, and a faith that refused to die no matter how hard life tried to kill it. Someone who believes miracles still happen, she said. Ethan's laugh was bitter. I've prayed to every god invented. None of them are listening. Maybe they are. Maybe we just don't recognize the answer yet. The answer is my son is dying. He stood abruptly, pacing to the window. Manhattan glittered below, a city that never stopped wanting, never stopped taking. The answer is that money means nothing. Power means nothing. I can buy anything in this world except the one thing that matters. Grace watched him. Ethan Cole at 42 was handsome in that sharp-edged way of men who'd built themselves from nothing and refused to show weakness. She'd Googled him after getting the job. Self-made billionaire. Tech empire. Parents died when he was young. Started his first company at 19. Built Cole Industries into a household name by 30. Noah's mother had died in childbirth. Complications the doctors didn't catch in time. So Ethan had raised his son alone while running an empire, and from everything Grace could see, he'd done both with fierce devotion. Until 8 months ago, when Noah's illness turned devotion into desperation. He talks about you too, Grace said quietly. When the pain is bad and he can't sleep. He tells me about the time you took him to the park and pushed him on the swings until your arms hurt. About the Batman costume you surprised him with. About how you do different voices when you read stories. Ethan's shoulders tensed. Used to read to him. He remembers. Remembering won't save him. No, Grace agreed. But love might. Ethan turned sharply. Love. The word came out harsh, mocking. I love him more than my own life, and he's still dying. So tell me, Grace. Her name in his mouth felt strange, intimate. What good is love? Before she could answer, Noah stirred. Both of them moved instantly to the bed. The boy's eyelids fluttered. His lips were still too pale, but his breathing had evened slightly. Dad! The word was barely a whisper. Ethan's entire face transformed. I'm here, buddy. Right here. Noah's eyes opened slowly, struggling to focus. When they found his father, something like relief flickered there. Bad dream. I know. But it's over now. Grace. Noah's gaze shifted, found her standing at the foot of the bed. Still here, sweetheart. She smiled, though tears pressed behind her eyes. Don't go. His small hand reached out. Grace moved without thinking, taking it gently. His fingers were cold, fragile as bird bones. I won't. Promise. The weight of that word. The impossible, beautiful weight of it. Promise, she whispered. Noah's eyes drifted closed again, but his grip on her hand remained. On his other side, Ethan still held his son's hand too, creating an unintentional chain. Father, son, and the stranger who'd stumbled into their tragedy. If you're feeling this moment like I am, drop a heart emoji in the comments. And if you haven't subscribed, do it now. This story is just beginning, and you won't want to miss what comes next. Grace felt it then. A pulse. Just a flutter, like a hummingbird's heartbeat, traveling from Noah's hand into hers. She looked up. Ethan was staring at their joined hands with an expression she couldn't read. Wonder. Fear. Something else entirely? He's never asked anyone to stay before, Ethan said slowly. Not the nurses. Not Mrs. Chun. No one but me. Grace didn't know what to say to that. Didn't know how to explain that sometimes broken people recognize each other. That Noah, in his 6-year-old wisdom, might have sensed she was as lost as he was. Get some rest, Ethan said finally, but gentler now. I'll stay with him. Grace nodded, carefully extracting her hand from Noah's loosened grip. She made it to the door before Ethan spoke again. Grace, she turned. Thank you. For seeing him. Not the dying boy. Him. The words lodged in her throat. She managed a nod and slipped into the hallway, closing the door softly behind her. In the silence, she pressed her palm against the wall and let herself shake. 3 weeks ago, she'd been sleeping in her car behind a grocery store, praying for a miracle that would give her life meaning again. Be careful what you pray for, because sometimes God answers. Sometimes he puts you in a billionaire's mansion with a dying child who needs hope and a broken father who's forgotten how to believe in it. Sometimes he gives you a purpose that terrifies you. Grace touched her grandmother's cross and whispered into the darkness. I hope you know what you're doing. The mansion offered no answer. But somewhere in Noah's room, she could hear Ethan's voice, soft and broken, reading a story to his son. And for tonight, that was enough. The kitchen smelled like cinnamon and regret. Grace stood at the counter, whisking pancake batter with more force than necessary. 5 a.m., and she'd given up on sleep 2 hours ago. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Noah's blue lips, heard those monitors screaming, felt that strange pulse traveling from his hand into hers. You're going to beat those eggs into submission. She jumped, spinning around. Ethan stood in the doorway, still wearing yesterday's shirt, sleeves rolled up, tie discarded somewhere. He looked worse than she'd ever seen him. Hair disheveled, stubble darkening his jaw, eyes red-rimmed from crying or exhaustion or both. I'm sorry, Mr. Cole. I didn't mean to wake you. You didn't. I haven't slept. He moved into the kitchen, heading straight for the coffee maker. And it's Ethan. If you're going to save my son's life every night, we can drop the formality. Grace's hands stilled on the whisk. I didn't save. Dr. Reeves said Noah shouldn't have come out of that seizure. Ethan poured coffee with shaking hands. Said his vitals were crashing. Then suddenly they stabilized. Right around the time you were holding his hand. That's just coincidence. I've built a career on not believing in coincidence. He took a long drink, studying her over the rim of his mug. Who are you really, Grace Miller? The question shouldn't have felt dangerous. But something in his tone, curiosity mixed with desperation mixed with hope, made her pulse quicken. I'm nobody. Just a housekeeper who. Nobody doesn't have light like that. Grace froze. Light. Ethan set down his mug, and suddenly the kitchen felt smaller. When you touched Noah last night, just for a second, I saw. He stopped, shook his head. Never mind. I've been awake too long. Starting to see things. But Grace's heart was hammering now, because she'd felt something too. That pulse. That flutter. Like electricity, but warmer. Alive. What did you see? She asked quietly. Ethan's eyes met hers, and for a moment, the successful CEO disappeared. In his place stood a man who'd witnessed something impossible, and didn't know whether to believe it or run from it. Light, he repeated. Coming from your hand. Just a flash, then gone. I told myself it was the lamp, or exhaustion, or desperation making me hallucinate. He stepped closer. But you felt something too. I saw your face. Grace's fingers found her grandmother's cross. Baby girl, some gifts aren't meant to be explained. They're meant to be used. I don't know what you're talking about. You're a terrible liar. Not accusing. Almost gentle. Whatever happened last night, Noah's resting better than he has in weeks. His fever broke around 3 a.m. Dr. Reeves called it unexpected, but didn't question it. Ethan's voice dropped. I am questioning it. Before Grace could respond, footsteps echoed in the hallway. Mrs. Chin appeared, immaculate as always despite the early hour. Mr. Cole, I wasn't expecting you in the kitchen. Her gaze flicked to Grace, and something passed through her expression too quick to read. Worry. Warning. Just getting coffee. Ethan's professional mask slid back into place. Grace was making breakfast. At 5 a.m.? Mrs. Chen's eyebrow raised. I couldn't sleep, Grace said quickly. Thought I'd get a head start. Mrs. Chen nodded slowly, but her eyes stayed on Grace a beat too long. Noah's awake. Asking for you. For me. Ethan set down his coffee. For Grace. The words hung in the air like smoke. Ethan's jaw tightened, and Grace saw the wound there. His own son asking for the stranger instead of him. I'll go, Grace said, wiping her hands on her apron. We'll both go. Ethan's tone left no room for argument. They climbed the stairs in silence, Mrs. Chen's gaze boring into Grace's back. The head housekeeper had been kind when Grace arrived, offering guidance and patience. But lately, Grace had caught her watching, assessing, like she was trying to solve a puzzle Grace didn't know she was. Noah's room was bathed in early morning light. The boy sat propped against pillows, and Grace's breath caught. Color had returned to his cheeks. Not much, but enough to make him look alive instead of fading. Grace! His face lit up when he saw her, then dimmed slightly when he noticed his father. Hi, Dad. Hey, buddy. Ethan crossed to the bed, pressing a kiss to Noah's forehead. How are you feeling? Better. Noah's eyes tracked back to Grace. Did you bring the book? Grace smiled, reaching into her apron pocket for the worn paperback. The Secret Garden. They'd started it 2 days ago, and Noah had become obsessed with Mary Lennox finding magic in forgotten places. Always. Will you read to me? Of course. Ethan stepped back, and Grace saw the pain in his movement. She wanted to say something, to bridge the gap between father and son, but Noah was already scooting over, patting the bed beside him. Grace sat carefully, opening the book. Ethan settled into the armchair by the window, close enough to hear, but far enough to feel like an outsider in his own son's room. If you're a parent watching this, you know that heartbreak. That moment when your child chooses someone else. Drop a comment if you've felt it. Sometimes knowing we're not alone in the hard moments makes them bearable. Grace read about Mary discovering the hidden garden, about secrets buried beneath winter waiting for spring. Noah's breathing evened, and within minutes, he drifted to sleep against her shoulder. She looked up. Ethan was staring at them with such raw longing that Grace had to look away. He trusts you, Ethan said quietly. Please don't say you're just the housekeeper. He stood, moving closer. Noah hasn't let anyone close in months. Not the therapist. Not his teachers before he got too sick for school. Not even me most days. His voice cracked. Then you show up, and suddenly he's laughing, sleeping through the night, asking for stories. Grace carefully shifted Noah's head to a pillow, extracting herself from the bed. Children sense when people genuinely care. That's all. That's not all. Ethan caught her wrist as she passed, his grip gentle but insistent. Last night wasn't just coincidence. This, he gestured to his sleeping son, isn't just good bedside manner. Something is happening here, and I need to understand it. Grace's skin tingled where he touched her. Not unpleasant, but intense, like standing too close to lightning. Let me go, she whispered. Tell me the truth first. The truth is I don't understand it either. The words burst out before she could stop them. The truth is I've had nothing but loss for 2 years. My parents, my grandmother, my entire life. I prayed and got nothing but silence. Then I came here and Noah, her voice broke. When I touch him, I feel something. Like warmth, like light, like maybe my prayers finally got answered, but I don't know why or how or what I'm supposed to do with it. The confession left her breathless. Ethan's grip on her wrist loosened, but didn't release. So you do feel it, he said slowly. I don't know what I feel. Maybe I'm just desperate to matter. Maybe I'm projecting hope where there isn't any. Maybe. Noah's monitor beeped. They both turned. The boy's breathing had changed again, and Grace's stomach dropped. Not another seizure. Please, not another. But Noah's eyes opened. Fully alert, more aware than Grace had seen him in days. Grace. His voice was stronger. I had a dream. She moved to his bedside. What kind of dream, sweetheart? About you. And light. Noah reached for her hand, And the moment their skin connected, Grace gasped. The pulse was back. Stronger this time. Undeniable. And Ethan saw it too. His sharp intake of breath confirmed it. Because Grace's hand was glowing. Not bright, not enough to light the room, but a soft luminescence that seemed to come from beneath her skin. It traveled up her fingers, into her palm, and where she touched Noah, his hand glowed too. What the hell? Ethan breathed. Grace tried to pull away, but Noah held tight. Don't, the boy said. It doesn't hurt. It feels good. Like Christmas morning. The glow intensified for 3 heartbeats, then faded. Grace's hand returned to normal. So did Noah's. But the boy was sitting up fully now, color flooding his cheeks. Eyes bright with something Grace hadn't seen before, vitality. I feel strong, Noah said, wonder in his voice. Dad, I feel strong. Ethan stumbled backward, hitting the wall. His face had gone white. This isn't possible. Mr. Cole. Don't. He held up a hand, and Grace saw it trembling. Don't tell me it's nothing. Don't tell me I'm imagining this. I don't know what this is. Grace's own hands were shaking now. I'm not special. I'm not anything. I'm just a miracle, Noah said simply. Like in the stories. The word hung in the air between them. Grace had prayed for purpose. Had begged God to use her, to give her something that mattered. But this was impossible. Miracles were for saints and prophets, not broken girls who'd lost everything. We need to test this, Ethan said, pulling out his phone. Dr. Reeves needs to see. No. Grace's vehemence surprised them both. You can't tell anyone. Why not? If you can help Noah. If I can help him, then what? Grace demanded. You think I understand this? You think I can control it? What if it stops working? What if it's temporary? Her voice rose. What if I give you hope and then it all falls apart? Because that was the real fear, wasn't it? The terror that had kept her running for 2 years. That she'd finally found something worth staying for. And it would be ripped away just like everything else. Ethan crossed to her in 2 strides, gripping her shoulders. Grace, look at me. She did. His eyes were intense, burning with something fierce and desperate. I don't know what's happening here, he said. I don't understand it. Maybe it's divine intervention. Maybe it's something science hasn't discovered yet. Maybe it's both. His grip tightened. But my son just sat up on his own for the first time in 3 weeks. He has color in his cheeks. He feels strong. And it happened when you touched him. Coincidence. Twice isn't coincidence. It's a pattern. Ethan's voice dropped, became almost pleading. I'm not asking you to understand it. I'm asking you to stay. Keep doing whatever you're doing. Let me pay for proper testing, real doctors who can. I don't want your money. Then what do you want? The question pierced her. What did she want? Grace looked past Ethan to Noah, who was watching them with 6-year-old wisdom that seemed ancient. The boy smiled at her, and it was like sunrise breaking through storm clouds. I want him to live, she whispered. I want him to grow up and have adventures and fall in love and argue with his dad about curfew. I want him to have everything. Then help me give it to him. Ethan's hands slid down her arms, his touch burning. Please. Before Grace could answer, Noah spoke up. Grace has magic. Like in the stories. Buddy, magic isn't. Ethan started. Yes, it is. Grandma told me. Noah's expression turned solemn. In my dream before the light, I saw a lady. She said grace was an answer to prayers. That she came here to save me. Grace's blood turned to ice. What did she look like? The lady. Old. With kind eyes and a silver necklace with a cross. The room tilted. Grace's grandmother. Described perfectly by a boy who'd never met her. Who couldn't have known about the cross Grace wore hidden beneath her uniform. Ethan saw her reaction. Grace. But she couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. Because if Noah had seen her grandmother, had received a message from the dead, then this wasn't just strange. It was supernatural. It was real. And Grace Miller, who'd thought herself forgotten by God, might actually be the miracle she'd stopped believing in. Grace locked herself in her bedroom for 3 hours. She sat on the narrow bed, staring at her grandmother's cross, trying to make sense of the impossible. The glow. Noah's dream. The description of a woman he'd never met. Baby girl, when God calls, you don't get to choose the assignment. You just say yes. But I don't know how, Grace whispered to the empty room. A knock interrupted her spiral. Mrs. Chen's voice filtered through the door. Grace? Mr. Cole wants to see you in his study. Of course he did. Grace splashed water on her face, straightened her uniform, and walked to the lion's den. Ethan's study was all dark wood and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. He stood with his back to her, phone pressed to his ear. I don't care what it costs. Fly him in tonight. A pause. Yes, I'm aware he doesn't make house calls. Make it worth his while. He ended the call, turned. Sit. Grace remained standing. Who are you calling? Dr. Langston. Holistic medicine specialist. Studies unexplained healing phenomena. Ethan moved to his desk, pulling out a file. Published 3 papers on spontaneous remission. If anyone can explain what's happening. I said no doctors. And I said my son's life is on the line. His voice was steel. You don't get to have miraculous powers and refuse to let me understand them. They're not powers. I don't even know if. You glowed, Grace. Ethan slammed the file down. Your hand lit up like a damn Christmas tree, and my son, who couldn't sit up yesterday, is downstairs eating breakfast. Real breakfast, not the liquid nutrition we've been forcing into him for weeks. Grace's heart stuttered. He's eating. Scrambled eggs. Toast. Asked for bacon. Ethan's voice cracked. Do you understand? He hasn't had an appetite in 2 months. The hope in his words terrified her. Because hope was dangerous. Hope was the thing that destroyed you when it died. What if it stops? Grace asked quietly. What if whatever this is only works temporarily? Then we figure it out. Together. Ethan came around the desk. I'm not asking you to be alone in this. You're not asking at all. You're demanding. Because I've spent 8 months watching my son die. The words exploded out of him. Because I've exhausted every option, called in every favor, spent every dollar trying to save him, and nothing worked. Now something is working, and you want me to just ignore it. I want you to slow down. Grace's voice rose to match his. You can't just throw money at this and expect answers. Some things don't have explanations. Everything has an explanation. Not miracles. The words stopped him cold. They stared at each other across the study, both breathing hard. Outside, the city hummed with oblivious life. Inside, the impossible pressed down on them. Ethan spoke first, quieter now. I don't believe in miracles. Maybe you should start. I believe in science. Data. Cause and effect. But his conviction wavered. I have to believe there's a rational explanation, because if there isn't, then you're not in control. Grace finished softly. Then you can't fix it with money or power or sheer force of will. His jaw tightened. Direct hit. If you're still with me, drop a comment about whether Ethan should trust Grace or push for answers. Your thoughts fuel these stories. And if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button. This journey is just getting started. Grace moved closer, lowering her voice. Ethan, I understand wanting control. When my parents died, I tried to control everything. Made lists, planned obsessively, thought if I could just manage every variable, nothing else bad would happen. She touched her cross. Then my grandmother died, and I lost my apartment, and suddenly I couldn't control anything. I learned that sometimes you have to surrender. Surrender is giving up. Surrender is trust. Trust who? God. The bitterness in his voice was acid. I trusted God with Noah's mother. Prayed the entire pregnancy. She died on the delivery table anyway. Grace's breath caught. She'd known about Noah's mother, but not the depth of Ethan's anger about it. So forgive me, Ethan continued. If I don't trust invisible forces to save my son, I trust what I can see, measure, and replicate. Then what do you call what happened upstairs? I don't know yet. That's why I'm bringing in specialists. And if they can't explain it, then I'll find someone who can. Stubborn, relentless, terrified. Grace understood then. His need for control wasn't arrogance. It was armor. If he could understand the miracle, quantify it, he could protect it. And maybe, buried deep beneath the billionaire exterior, protect himself from more loss. Okay, she said. Ethan blinked. Okay, bring in your specialist. Run your tests. Grace met his eyes. But I have conditions. His eyebrows rose. The housekeeper negotiating with the CEO. What conditions? First, whatever happens, Noah comes first. Not data, not research. Him. Agreed. Second, if this scares him, we stop. I won't let him become a lab experiment. Ethan hesitated, then nodded. What else? If this doesn't work, if the improvement is temporary or stops, or... Grace's voice wavered. You don't blame me. I'm not a healer. I'm just someone who cares about your son. Something shifted in Ethan's expression. Softened. I could never blame you for caring. The moment stretched between them, charged with something Grace couldn't name. She became acutely aware of how close they were standing, how his eyes were more gray than blue in this light, how exhaustion made him look vulnerable instead of powerful. Grace! A crash from downstairs shattered the moment. They both ran. Grace's heart hammered as they raced to the kitchen, where Mrs. Chun stood frozen, staring at Noah. The boy had collapsed on the floor, convulsing. No! Ethan dropped beside his son. Call Dr. Reeves. Now! But Grace saw something the others didn't. Noah's eyes were open during the seizure, tracking her movement. And his hand, his small hand, was reaching out. Not convulsing. Reaching. Grace fell to her knees, grabbing his hand. The glow returned instantly, brighter than before. It pulsed up her arm like lightning, and Noah's body went rigid. Not from seizure, but from whatever force was moving through them. Grace, let go. Ethan tried to pull her away. No, she held tighter, because she could feel it now. Feel the sickness in Noah like black oil in water, and the light, her light or God's light, or whatever this was, burning it away. The glow intensified until Grace had to close her eyes against it. Heat. Power. A presence bigger than herself moving through her like she was a conduit, not the source. Use me, she thought desperately. Please, use me to save him. The light exploded outward. When Grace opened her eyes, the kitchen was silent. Noah lay still in her arms, and for one horrible moment she thought. Then he sat up. Not slowly. Not weakly. He sat up like a normal 6-year-old waking from a nap, and his eyes were clear. Bright. Alive. That was weird, Noah said. Grace started laughing. Or crying. Both. Her body shook with the release of terror and relief and something too big to name. Ethan pulled Noah into his arms, burying his face in his son's hair. His shoulders shook. Mrs. Chun had backed against the counter, hand over her mouth, staring at Grace like she'd witnessed a resurrection. Maybe she had. Dad, you're squishing me, Noah complained, but he was smiling. Ethan pulled back, hands running over his son like he was checking for broken pieces. Are you hurt? Does anything? I'm hungry, Noah interrupted. Can I have more eggs? The absurdity of it, the beautiful, perfect absurdity, made Grace laugh harder. This boy who'd been dying minutes ago was asking for breakfast. Ethan looked at Grace over Noah's head. His expression held wonder, terror, and something else. Something that made her breath catch. Thank you, he mouthed. But Grace shook her head. Because she hadn't done this. She was just the vessel. The question was, a vessel for what? And more terrifying, what would happen when the power decided it was done with her? Dr. Langston arrived at midnight in a Tesla and a cloud of expensive cologne. Grace watched from the upstairs landing as Ethan greeted him. A tall man with silver hair and wire-rimmed glasses, carrying a leather medical bag that probably cost more than her car used to. This better be worth the jet fuel coal. His voice carried up the stairs. I was in Tokyo. Trust me. Ethan glanced upward, and Grace ducked back into the shadows. You've never seen anything like this. They disappeared into the study. Grace should have gone to bed. Should have stayed out of it like she'd promised herself. Instead, she crept down the hallway and pressed her ear to the door. Spontaneous cellular regeneration, Ethan was saying. His blood work from this morning shows white cell counts in normal range. Yesterday they were critical. Impossible. That doesn't happen overnight. I watched it happen. Multiple witnesses. A pause. Papers rustling. Then Dr. Langston's voice, carefully neutral. And you believe the housekeeper is causing this? Grace's stomach clenched. I believe when she touches my son, he improves. Dramatically. Ethan's voice dropped. I saw light, Langston. Actual light coming from her hands. Ethan, grief can cause hallucinations. Mrs. Chin saw it too. And the boy. It's not hallucination. Silence. Then, if what you're describing is real, we're talking about something unprecedented. The medical implications alone. I don't care about implications. I care about my son. Of course. But you understand, if this woman has genuine healing abilities, she needs to be studied. Properly. We could help thousands. No. Ethan's voice turned hard. No studies. No publicity. I won't let her become a circus act. Grace's chest tightened. He was protecting her. Then what do you want from me? Dr. Langston asked. Answers. Can you test her? Figure out what's happening without. Ethan trailed off. Without treating her like a lab rat? A dry laugh. I can try. But Ethan, if she's the real thing, you can't keep this quiet forever. Word will get out. Then I'll make sure it doesn't. Footsteps approached the door. Grace barely made it back to the stairs before it opened. Grace. Ethan's voice stopped her cold. I know you're there. She turned slowly. He stood in the doorway, backlit by the study's warm light, looking exhausted and determined in equal measure. Come in, he said. Please. Dr. Langston studied her like a butterfly pinned to a board. Grace fought the urge to run. Ms. Miller. He extended a hand. I'm Dr. Marcus Langston. His name isn't Marcus, Grace said automatically, then flushed. Sorry. The instructions specifically said no character named Marcus, Ethan said quietly, and something in his tone made Grace look at him sharply. Was he joking? In the middle of this crisis? Their eyes met, and she saw the tiniest quirk of his mouth. A moment of absurdity shared between them. Subscribe if you caught that meta moment. Sometimes even in darkness, we find reasons to smile. Dr. Langston cleared his throat. Julian. Dr. Julian Langston. And I'd like to run some tests with your permission. What kind of tests? Non-invasive. Blood work, neurological scans, thermal imaging. He gestured to his bag. I've studied cases of unexplained healing across 3 continents. Seen things medical science can't explain. But I've never encountered verifiable bioluminescence in a human subject. I'm not a subject. No, Ethan said firmly. She's not. She's a person who's helping my son, and we're going to treat her with respect. Something warm unfurled in Grace's chest at his tone. He really was protecting her. Of course. Dr. Langston opened his bag. Shall we start with simple blood work? Grace sat in the leather chair, rolling up her sleeve. The needle pinched, vial after vial filling with red that looked disappointingly normal. No glow. No magic. Just regular blood. Now, Dr. Langston said, setting up a thermal camera. I'd like you to try to activate the response. Whatever you do when you touch Noah. I don't do anything. It just happens. Try anyway. Focus on your hands. Grace closed her eyes, trying to summon that feeling. The warmth, the pulse, the presence. Nothing came. Her hands remained stubbornly ordinary. It doesn't work like that, she said, opening her eyes. I can't control it. What triggers it then? Dr. Langston leaned forward. Emotional state? Physical contact? Specific intention? Noah triggers it. Only Noah. Ethan and the doctor exchanged glances. What? Grace demanded. If the response is specific to Noah, Dr. Langston said slowly, then we're not talking about general healing ability. We're talking about something more targeted. Personal. Like a connection, Ethan added. Between them specifically. Grace's skin prickled. What does that mean? It means, Dr. Langston said, that you and Noah might be entangled on a quantum level. That your biological systems are communicating in ways we don't fully understand. That's insane. So his glowing hands. He packed away his equipment. I'll need to run more tests. Compare your DNA, study the interaction in real time. No. Grace stood abruptly. I'm not your experiment. Grace, Ethan started. You said you'd protect me. Now he wants to study our DNA. She backed toward the door. I agreed to help Noah, not become some science project. It's not like that, Ethan said, following her. We're trying to understand. So you can replicate it? Bottle it? Sell it? Grace's voice rose. I've seen what happens when miracles become commodities. What are you talking about? The words burst out before she could stop them. My grandmother. She could do things too. Small things, heal headaches, soothe fevers. Word got out. Suddenly our house was full of desperate people, all wanting pieces of her. She died exhausted, wrung dry by everyone else's need. Grace's eyes burned. I won't let that happen to me. Silence crashed down. Ethan stared at her. Your grandmother had abilities? Grace hadn't meant to reveal that. Hadn't meant to connect those dots. It's genetic, Dr. Langston breathed. My God, it's hereditary. Get out. Grace pointed at him. Get out right now. Ms. Miller, this is crucial information. Out. Ethan moved between them. Langston. Leave. But. Now. The doctor gathered his things with visible reluctance, shooting Grace looks that made her skin crawl. When the door closed behind him, Grace sagged against the wall. I shouldn't have told you that. I'm glad you did. Ethan's voice was gentle. Grace, I'm sorry. I pushed too hard. I just want to save your son. I know. She looked up at him. But Ethan, I don't understand this. I don't know why it works or how long it'll last or what it's costing me. Costing you? Grace pressed a hand to her chest. Every time I heal him, I feel emptier after. Like something's being pulled out of me. Horror crossed Ethan's face. Why didn't you say? Because he needs it more than I do. Her voice broke. Because watching him suffer is worse than feeling empty. Because maybe this is why I survived when everyone I loved died. To save your son. The confession hung between them like broken glass. Ethan closed the distance in 2 steps, framing her face with his hands. Listen to me. I won't let you destroy yourself to save Noah. Do you understand? I won't. You don't get to decide that. The hell I don't. His thumb brushed her cheek, and Grace realized she was crying. You matter, Grace Miller. Not just as Noah's healer. You matter. The words cracked something open inside her. For 2 years, she'd felt disposable. Forgotten. Just another person the world had chewed up and spit out. But standing in Ethan Cole's study, his hands warm against her face, his eyes fierce with protection, she felt seen. Noah needs me, she whispered. We both do, Ethan said and kissed her. The kiss lasted 3 heartbeats before Grace pulled away. We can't. Her voice shook. I work for you. Your son is asleep upstairs, getting better because of you. Ethan's hands dropped, but he didn't step back. And I don't care about the employment dynamic right now. I care that you've been carrying this weight alone. Grace wrapped her arms around herself. This is a mistake. Probably. His smile was sad. But I've made worse ones. Before she could respond, a scream shattered the night. Noah. They ran. Grace burst into Noah's room first, and her blood turned to ice. The boy was sitting up in bed, but his eyes were glowing. Not his hands. His eyes. Pure white light streaming from them like searchlights. Noah. Ethan grabbed his son's shoulders. Buddy, can you hear me? The boy turned toward his father's voice, but Grace knew he couldn't see. Whatever was happening, Noah was somewhere else entirely. He's burning up. Ethan pressed a hand to Noah's forehead. Grace, do something. But Grace stood frozen. Because she could feel it now. The connection Dr. Langston had mentioned. Like a rope stretched between her and Noah, vibrating with energy. And something was pulling from the other end. Grace. Ethan's voice cut through her paralysis. She moved to the bed, taking Noah's hand. The moment they touched, the glow transferred to her. Up her arm, across her chest, until her entire body hummed with power that wasn't hers. Images flooded her mind. Noah in a garden, the secret garden from their story. But wrong. Dark. Twisted. Thorns everywhere. And standing in the center, a shadow with familiar eyes. Her grandmother. Baby girl. You have to let him go. No. Grace's voice echoed in both realities. I can save him. Asterisk, not this time. This is his fight. Asterisk. Then help him fight it. Asterisk, I can't reach him. Only you can. Asterisk. The vision shifted. Grace saw Noah surrounded by the thorns, bleeding, crying. The sickness wasn't leaving. It was concentrating, becoming something sentient. Something that wanted to consume him entirely. What do I do? Grace screamed. You have to go in after him. Back in the real world, Ethan was shaking her. Grace, your nose is bleeding. Stop whatever you're doing. But she couldn't stop. Wouldn't. Grace closed her eyes and dove deeper into the connection. The garden materialized around her. She could smell the rot, feel the thorns catching her clothes. Noah, where are you? Grace. His voice, small and terrified, came from the center of the maze. She ran, thorns tearing at her skin. The pain felt real, too real. When she looked down, blood stained her uniform. I'm coming, sweetheart. Keep talking. I can't see you. It's dark and it hurts, En. His voice cut off. Grace burst through the final wall of thorns and found him. Noah huddled in a nest of black vines that pulsed like veins, wrapping tighter around his small body with each breath. Grace. His eyes were normal now, filled with tears. I'm scared. I know, baby. I know. She dropped beside him, grabbing the vines. They burned her palms, but she pulled anyway. But I've got you. You can't fight this. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. Deep. Ancient. Wrong. The shadow her grandmother had shown her materialized. Not human. Not anything recognizable. Just darkness in a vaguely human shape. Who are you? Grace demanded. I'm what happens when prayers go unanswered. The things circled them. I'm every desperate plea, every bargain offered. I'm the price of miracles. Understanding hit Grace like cold water. You're not the sickness. No. The sickness invited me. Made room for me. The shadow laughed. And I'm so comfortable here. Get out of him. Make me. It lunged. Grace threw herself over Noah, and the shadow hit her instead. Ice flooded her veins. Every loss she'd ever suffered replayed in excruciating detail. Her parents' accident, her grandmother's last breath, every night sleeping in her car while the world moved on without caring. You're empty, the shadow whispered. Hollow. Nothing but grief in human skin. What makes you think you can save anyone? For a moment, Grace believed it. She was nothing, had nothing, was nothing. Then Noah's hand found hers. You saved me, the boy said. Lots of times. You're not empty. The warmth, their connection, flared to life. Grace remembered. Reading stories in lamplight, Noah's laugh when Captain Hook fell, Ethan's hands on her face, the words you matter. You're right, Grace told the shadow. I'm not empty. I'm full. Of love, of hope, of stubborn refusal to let darkness win. The light exploded from her core. The shadow screamed, an inhuman sound that shattered the thorns and tore the garden apart. Grace held Noah tighter as reality fractured around them. Time to go home, she whispered. She pulled them both back. Grace gasped, her eyes flying open. She was on Noah's bedroom floor, Ethan holding her, Mrs. Chun on the phone with 911. Cancel it, Grace managed. We're okay. You're not okay. Ethan's face was white. You stopped breathing. You both. Dad. Noah's voice, weak but clear, came from the bed. They turned. The boy sat up slowly, rubbing his eyes. Normal eyes. No glow. No fever. I had the weirdest dream, Noah said. Then he smiled, really smiled, and Grace knew. The sickness was gone. Morning came with questions Grace couldn't answer. Dr. Reeves arrived at dawn, summoned by Mrs. Chen's panic call. He ran every test twice, then 3 times, because the results made no medical sense. His blood work is perfect, the doctor said, staring at his tablet like it had betrayed him. White cells normal. No inflammation markers. No trace of the degenerative process. He looked up at Ethan. It's like he was never sick. So he's cured. Ethan's hand tightened on Grace's shoulder. She hadn't left Noah's bedside, and he hadn't left hers. I don't use that word lightly, but Dr. Reeves shook his head. I can't explain this. Yesterday his organs were failing. Today he's healthier than most children his age. Drop a celebration emoji if you're feeling this miracle. And subscribe. Part 8 brings unexpected complications. ***. Noah was eating pancakes, real pancakes, not the nutritional supplements that had sustained him for months. He chattered between bites about the dream garden, about Grace saving him from the shadow monster, about how he wanted to go to the park. Can we, Dad? Please. I haven't been outside in forever. Ethan's eyes glistened. Soon, buddy. Let's make sure you're really strong first. I am strong. Noah flexed his thin arms. Grace made me strong. The words settled over the room like snow. Mrs. Chin glanced at Grace with something between awe and fear. Dr. Reeves looked like he wanted to dissect her. Ethan just looked grateful. Grace excused herself. She made it to her bedroom before her legs gave out. Collapsing on the bed, she stared at her hands. They looked normal, felt normal, but she could still feel the echo of that power, that presence that had moved through her, and the emptiness that came after. A knock. Grace? It's me. Ethan. She opened the door. He stood in the hallway, still wearing yesterday's clothes, looking exhausted and younger somehow. How are you? He asked. I don't know. The truth. How are you? Terrified. Grateful. Confused. He stepped inside, closing the door. What happened last night? What did you see? Grace told him everything. The garden. The shadow. Her grandmother's voice. The battle that happened in a place that shouldn't exist. Ethan listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker. So something was living in him, he said finally. Something that fed on his sickness. Or caused it. I'm not sure. Grace wrapped her arms around herself. But it's gone now. I felt it die. And you almost died too. Ethan moved closer. Grace, you stopped breathing. Your heart stopped. Mrs. Chin thought, we all thought. But I came back. What if next time you don't? The question hung between them. Because they both knew, miraculous healings came with costs. Stories about saints and martyrs always ended the same way. There won't be a next time, Grace said. Noah's healed. This is over. Is it? Ethan's voice was gentle. Word is already spreading. Mrs. Chun told her sister. Dr. Reeves will have to report this to his medical board. By tomorrow, people will know about the miracle maid who cured the dying billionaire's son. Ice flooded Grace's veins. No, you promised. I'll try to control it. But Grace, you saved my son's life. People will want to know how. They'll want me to save them too. Grace's voice cracked. Everyone with a sick child, a dying parent. They'll come here, and I won't be able to help them all, and they'll hate me for it. Because that was the nightmare, wasn't it? The one her grandmother had lived. Being torn apart by desperate people demanding miracles she couldn't guarantee. Ethan pulled her into his arms. I won't let that happen. You can't stop it. Watch me. His voice turned hard. I have lawyers, security, resources. We'll protect you. Why? Grace pulled back to look at him. Why do you care what happens to me? The question seemed to surprise him. He studied her face like he was seeing her for the first time. Really seeing her. Because you're not just the woman who saved my son, he said quietly. You're the woman who sits with him for hours reading stories. Who makes him laugh. Who sees him as a person, not a tragedy. His hand came up to cup her cheek. You're the woman who gave me hope when I'd forgotten what it felt like. Ethan, I'm falling for you, Grace Miller. And I know the timing is terrible and the situation is impossible, but I can't pretend I don't feel it. Grace's heart hammered. This is gratitude. It's not gratitude. He kissed her forehead. It's you, your strength, your faith. The way you look at the world like it still has goodness in it, even after everything you've lost. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I don't know how to do this. Any of this. Neither do I. Ethan smiled and it transformed his face. But maybe we figure it out together? Before Grace could answer, shouts erupted from downstairs. They ran to the foyer. Mrs. Chun stood at the front door, trying to block a woman in an expensive coat who was pushing past her. I need to see her, the woman cried. My daughter, please, she's dying. If Grace Miller can heal, she has to help us. Behind her, 3 more people crowded the doorway. More stood on the lawn. Grace's blood turned to ice. How do they know my name? Ethan's jaw clenched. He pulled out his phone, scrolled, and his face went white. Dr. Langston. He posted about you on a medical forum. Called you the miracle worker of Manhattan. The woman broke free from Mrs. Chun, falling to her knees in front of Grace. Please. My Emma is only 4. The doctors say weeks at most. Please. Grace looked into the woman's desperate eyes and saw her own reflection. The grief, the hope, the terror of losing everything that mattered. I don't know if I can help, Grace whispered. Try. Just try. More voices joined the chorus outside. Grace could see them through the windows. Dozens of people, holding photos of sick children, elderly parents, dying loved ones. All of them looking at her like she was salvation itself. Ethan moved between Grace and the crowd. Everyone out. Now. But my daughter. Out. His CEO voice commanding and cold. Security is on the way. If you're not gone in 60 seconds, I'll have you arrested for trespassing. The woman sobbed but retreated. Mrs. Chun shut the door, turning the lock. Through the windows, Grace watched the crowd gather. Waiting. Watching. Wanting. What have I done? She breathed. The crowd outside grew by the hour. By noon, news vans had arrived. By evening, the street was blocked with cars. People holding vigil with candles and photos and prayers. Grace watched from Noah's window, her stomach churning. They think I'm a saint, she whispered. You saved my life. Noah leaned against her side, stronger than he'd been in months. Maybe you can save theirs too. It doesn't work like that, sweetheart. Why not? Grace had no answer. Downstairs, Ethan was on his 4th conference call with lawyers and security consultants. His voice drifted up, controlled fury barely contained. I don't care what it costs. Clear the street. Get injunctions. Do whatever it takes. Mrs. Chin appeared in the doorway. Grace? Someone's here to see you. I'm not seeing anyone. You'll want to see her. Something in Mrs. Chen's tone made Grace turn. The woman standing behind the housekeeper was elderly, dressed simply, with kind eyes and silver hair. She looked familiar in a way Grace couldn't place. Hello, Grace. The woman's voice was warm. I'm Eleanor. Your grandmother sent me. The room tilted. My grandmother is dead. I know, dear. That's why she sent me. Eleanor moved into the room with calm authority. Noah, would you give us a moment? The boy looked at Grace, who nodded. He left reluctantly, and Mrs. Chen followed, closing the door. Eleanor sat in the armchair by Noah's bed, gesturing for Grace to join her. I knew your grandmother well. We were part of the same community, you might say. Community. Healers. Prayer warriors. People who carry light in their bones. Eleanor smiled. Your grandmother had the gift. Now you do too. Grace's hands trembled. I don't want it. I know. She didn't either, at first. Eleanor reached into her bag, pulling out a worn leather journal. She asked me to give you this if the gift ever manifested. Said you'd need guidance. Grace took the journal with shaking hands. Her grandmother's handwriting covered the first page. For my baby girl, when the light comes calling. Tears blurred Grace's vision. Why didn't she tell me? Because she hoped it would skip you. Hoped you'd have a normal life. Eleanor's expression turned sad. But gifts like ours don't skip generations. They wait for the right moment. The right need. Noah. Yes. That child needed saving, and you were the only one who could do it. Eleanor leaned forward. But Grace, you need to understand. This gift comes with rules. Break them and it breaks you. Ice filled Grace's stomach. What rules? You can't heal everyone. The gift chooses who receives it. Try to force it and you'll burn out mind, body, and soul. How do I know who it chooses? You feel it. A pull, a connection. Like with Noah. Eleanor's voice gentlened. Those people outside. You won't feel it with most of them. And if you try anyway, you'll destroy yourself trying to be God instead of his vessel. Grace looked out the window at the desperate faces below. So I just tell them no? Watch them suffer. You tell them the truth. That miracles can't be demanded. That some prayers get answered and others. Eleanor's voice caught. Others test our faith in ways we'll never understand. My grandmother died helping people. She died because she tried to help everyone. Ignored the gift's limits. Gave until there was nothing left to give. Eleanor gripped Grace's hand. Don't make her mistake. You matter too, child. Your life has value beyond what you can do for others. If you're feeling this truth, drop a comment. And hit subscribe. Part 9 is the conclusion we've been building to. Asterisk, asterisk. The door burst open. Ethan stood there, face ashen. Grace, you need to come downstairs. Now. They found Noah in the kitchen, holding hands with a little girl Grace had never seen before. The child was maybe 5, bald from chemotherapy, pale as moonlight. Behind her stood the desperate mother from earlier. I'm sorry, the woman sobbed. Security was distracted. I just needed. Emma touched him and now. Noah was glowing. Not his eyes this time. His whole body, soft and golden, like he'd swallowed sunlight. And where he touched Emma, the glow spread to her too. What's happening? Ethan moved toward his son. Don't. Eleanor grabbed his arm. The gift is transferring. Transferring where? Grace demanded. To Noah. He's becoming a healer too. Grace's world stopped. No. He's 6 years old. He can't. He already is. Eleanor pointed. The glow faded. Emma stood straighter, color returning to her cheeks. Her mother gasped, hands flying to her mouth. Noah swayed and Grace caught him. I felt it, the boy whispered. Like what you feel, Grace. The connection. Emma's mother dropped to her knees, sobbing. Her tumor. I can feel it, it's gone. Emma giggled, hugging Noah. You're magic like Grace. Grace looked at Ethan, saw her own horror reflected there. Noah, burdened with this gift. Noah, who'd barely survived his own illness, now expected to heal others. This can't happen, Ethan said. He's a child. The gift doesn't ask permission. Eleanor's voice was sad. It finds the pure hearts. The willing vessels. Then I'll refuse it for him. Ethan's voice turned hard. We're leaving. Tonight. Somewhere no one can find us. Dad, no. Noah pulled away from Grace. I can help people. Like Grace helped me. You're 6 years old. So. Grace says God uses whoever's available. Noah's chin lifted with stubborn determination that looked exactly like his father's. I'm available. Grace's heart shattered. Because she saw it now. The choice that would define everything. Run. Protect Noah from the burden she carried. Or stay. Teach him to bear the gift without being destroyed by it. What do I do? She looked at Eleanor, at Ethan, at Noah's hopeful face. You choose, Eleanor said simply. Protect him from his calling, or guide him through it. There's no wrong answer, Grace. Only hard ones. Outside, the crowd chanted Grace's name. Inside, a 6-year-old boy glowed with power he didn't understand, smiling like he'd found his purpose. And Grace Miller, who'd prayed for meaning after losing everything, realized that sometimes answered prayers came with impossible choices. The doorbell rang. More desperate people. More dying children. More hopes pinned on miracles she couldn't guarantee. Grace looked at her hands, ordinary, empty, human. Then at Noah, extraordinary, full of light, and waiting for her answer. End of Part 8. Part 9. The final choice and resolution. Ready for the conclusion? Hashtag Part 9. The miracle's true meaning. Grace opened her grandmother's journal with trembling hands. The first entry was dated 30 years ago. Asterisk, the gift found me today. I don't know if I'm strong enough, but I suppose that's the point. God doesn't call the equipped. He equips the called. Asterisk. She flipped through pages of her grandmother's journey. The people she'd healed, the ones she couldn't, the exhaustion that came from trying to be everything to everyone. The final entry stopped Grace's heart. Asterisk, I'm so tired, baby girl. But I can't stop. How do I tell desperate mothers no? How do I choose which child lives and which dies? So I don't choose. I try to save them all, even though it's killing me. Maybe that's the real miracle. Not the healing, but the willingness to be broken for others. Asterisk. No, Grace whispered. That's not the miracle. That's martyrdom. She looked up. Ethan stood in the doorway, Noah asleep against his shoulder. He exhausted himself, Ethan said quietly. Healed 3 more people before I could stop him. A man's arthritis. A woman's migraines. A teenager's depression. His voice cracked. He's glowing in his sleep, Grace. Literally glowing. Grace crossed to them, touching Noah's forehead. The light pulsed beneath his skin like a heartbeat. But instead of the emptiness she usually felt after healing, Noah seemed full. Peaceful. He's not being drained, Eleanor said from behind them. She'd stayed, watching everything with sad, knowing eyes. Children carry the gift differently. They haven't learned to doubt themselves yet. So he can heal without it destroying him? Hope flickered in Ethan's voice. For now. But eventually. Eleanor's gaze moved to Grace. Eventually, the world will ask too much. Just like it did with your grandmother. Grace made her decision. Then we teach him to say no. Her voice was firm. We teach him that he's not responsible for every sick person in the world. That sometimes the answer is no, and that's okay. The crowd outside won't accept that, Ethan said. Then they'll learn. Grace moved to the window. The vigil had grown. Hundreds of people now, holding photos and candles and desperate prayers. Eleanor, will you help me? The old woman smiled. That's why I'm here. They went outside together. The crowd surged forward, voices rising in a cacophony of pleas. Grace raised her hands, and somehow silence fell. I know why you're here, she said, her voice carrying in the night air. I know your pain. I've lost everyone I loved. I've slept in my car and wondered if God was listening. I understand desperate prayers. A woman called out. Then help us. Please. I can't. The words hurt, but Grace continued. Not because I don't want to, but because miracles don't work that way. I can't heal on demand. Neither can Noah. The gift chooses, we don't. That's not fair, someone shouted. No, Grace agreed. It's not. Nothing about suffering is fair. But demanding miracles doesn't make them happen. It just breaks the people you're demanding them from. If this truth resonates with you, leave a comment about letting go of what we can't control. And if you haven't subscribed, do it now. This community is about real hope, not false promises. Asterisk asterisk. Eleanor stepped forward. My name is Eleanor Chun. I've been a healer for 40 years. And I've learned something. The real miracle isn't the healing. It's the love that shows up anyway. The presence that says, I'm here, even when we can't fix it. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Grace healed Noah, Eleanor continued, because God connected them specifically. But she also healed him by staying. By reading stories and holding his hand and refusing to let him face the darkness alone. That's a miracle anyone can perform. Grace saw understanding dawn on some faces. Resistance on others. A man pushed forward, older, weathered, carrying a photo of a young woman. My daughter has weeks to live. Are you telling me to just sit with her and let her die? Grace's throat tightened. I'm telling you that sitting with her matters more than you know. That your presence is healing even if her body isn't healed. That love is its own kind of miracle. But if you tried, I would fail. Grace's voice broke. And you would hate me for it. And I would hate myself. Because I've learned something too. I can't be God. I can only be human. Flawed, limited, doing my best. Tears streamed down the man's face. So what do? You love her. You show up. You make her remaining days full of everything that matters. Grace descended the steps, standing directly in front of him. And you trust that whatever comes next, whether it's healing or heaven, love doesn't end. It transforms. The man collapsed into her arms, sobbing. Grace held him, and she felt it. Not the healing power, but something deeper. Connection. Compassion. The recognition that suffering shared was suffering halved. Other people began to leave. Not everyone. Some stayed, still hoping for miracles. But many walked away carrying something different than what they'd come for. Permission to be human, to grieve, to accept that some things couldn't be fixed. Ethan appeared at Grace's side as the crowd thinned. That was brave. That was necessary. She leaned into him, exhausted. I won't let Noah become what my grandmother was. I won't let this gift destroy him. So what now? Grace looked up at the mansion, at Noah's window where a soft glow still emanated. Now we teach him balance, that he's more than his gift, that his value isn't in what he can do for others. And us. Ethan's arm wrapped around her waist. What are we? Grace smiled for the first time in days. We're two broken people who found each other in the darkness. We're Noah's protection and his teachers. She paused, meeting his eyes. We're family. If you want to be. Ethan kissed her, soft, sweet, full of promise. I want to be. 3 months later. Noah ran through Central Park, laughing as he chased pigeons. Color filled his cheeks. Strength filled his limbs. He looked like any other 6-year-old, except for the occasional shimmer that rippled across his skin when he was happy. Grace watched from a bench, Ethan's hand in hers. He glowed at school yesterday, Ethan said. His teacher called, concerned. What did you tell her? That our son is special. And that special doesn't mean available for everyone's use. Ethan squeezed her hand. She understood. Grace smiled. They'd found a rhythm. Noah healing occasionally when the connection pulled him, but mostly just being a child. Playing, learning, growing. They'd hired Eleanor as a tutor, someone who understood the gift and could guide Noah without exploiting him. The media had moved on to other miracles. Some people still came to the house, but Ethan's security kept them at a distance. And slowly, Grace had learned something her grandmother never did. That saying no was an act of self-preservation, not selfishness. Grace. Noah ran up, breathless. Can we get ice cream? Of course. She stood, ruffling his wheat-colored hair. And can we read more of the book tonight? I want to know if Mary finds more magic in the garden. Grace's heart swelled. We'll read as much as you want. As they walked toward the ice cream vendor, Noah between them holding both their hands, Grace felt her grandmother's presence. Not sad anymore, but proud. You learned what I couldn't, baby girl. That miracles are precious because they're rare. That you can't save everyone, but you can love the ones you're given. That sometimes the greatest gift is knowing your limits. Grace touched her cross and whispered, thank you. For the impossible job that taught her worth. For the dying boy who became her purpose. For the broken billionaire who became her home. For the gift that connected them all. For the miracle that wasn't just the healing, but the life that came after. The end. Thank you for joining me on Grace, Ethan, and Noah's journey. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe and share it with someone who needs reminder that hope exists even in the darkest places. Drop a comment about what moment resonated most with you. I love hearing your thoughts. Until next time, beautiful souls, keep believing in miracles.